All right, welcome to another skills video with Sydney and Sam. Today, for our mindfulness practice, we are going to do an intention setting activity. So, this will connect to our core skill, Cope Ahead today. To give you a little bit of background around where I'm coming from with this skill today, I found out this week that my childhood dog, Freckles, is having trouble standing and moving and living. And so my parents are bringing her to the vet this week on Wednesday, and there's a potential that she'll be put down. And so I'm anticipating on Wednesday that it's going to be a pretty rough day for me. I'm going to have a lot of worry, a lot of fear, a lot of sadness, um, and likely be very distracted all day. But I also have clients all day, and I've come to this wise minded decision that it wouldn't do me a whole lot of good to sit and ruminate because the outcome will be the outcome. I'm in Seattle, they're in the Midwest. There's not a whole lot that I can do right now. And so I, on days like these, like to take a piece of advice from one of my supervisors that I got long ago. And it is one of my favorites of setting intentions on days where we feel like it is going to be rougher and we're going into situations that we anticipate being a challenge. And so today for mindfulness, we're going to do an intention setting activity. And my hope for you is that you will just throw yourself in, do your best with this, and we'll all try to find an intention to set. So I'm going to have you go ahead and assume your mindful positions, shoulders back, maybe palms up if you want to invite something in, down if you're looking to ground. And for this activity, I'm going to have you go ahead and close your eyes. So to get you started, take a couple nice deep breaths, really focusing on slowing down that exhale. I want for you to think of one intention that you can set for either today or for somewhere near in the future when you anticipate a difficult situation coming up. This intention can look any way that you want it to. It might be bringing kindness and mindful awareness to your interactions. It might be finding courage when facing something difficult or moving with confidence in a situation where you anticipate feeling some self-judgments or noticing some self-judgments. Hold your intention, and I'd like for you to imagine what it would look like to live out that intention. What sort of things might you do? Behaviors would you notice if you were living true to this intention? What things might you say? How might you interact with other people? What emotions do you notice? And what sort of thoughts might you have as you're going through your day living up to this intention? Take a few breaths to really throw yourself in and mentally rehearse what you will do, say, feel, and think when you are living up to the intention that you set. you need more time with this practice, feel free to pause the video. Otherwise, I'm going to have you wiggle your fingers and your toes and gently come back to the room. And let's dive into our material today. So the first thing we're going to talk about is a skill called building mastery. And this really maps on to what we talked about in the prior video of accumulating positives. And what building mastery is trying things on, engaging with activities that are challenging enough that they will give you a sense of accomplishment once you have completed them. Okay? These are activities that might not always be fun and easy, but over time, they end up being really, really meaningful. It brings us, again, that accomplishment, the meaning, makes us feel masterful. To give you some examples from my life, one thing that I've been undertaking lately is refurbishing old furniture, using the good old chalk paint, learning how to use a sander, and taking pieces that are old and beat up and run down and making them something that I either am going to use or perhaps gift or sell. To be honest, all I've done is keep the furniture that I've made, such as this lovely little bookshelf behind me here. So that's one example, one activity that I do to help build mastery. Sam, anything that you engage with that helps give you that sense of mastery?
First thing that comes to mind for me is cooking. I something that I have been paying a lot of attention to lately is the ways in which I feel like I'm nourishing my body. And for me, cooking is a big one. And there are certainly days where I don't feel like cooking, days where I'm too tired or I don't have ingredients and I would have to go to the grocery store first. And I've noticed that pushing myself to cook, even on those days where it's hard, ends up benefiting me in the long run.
Mm-hmm. You're reminding me of all those bread bakers out there that when COVID hit, everyone learned how to bake bread. These are really great examples, especially where it comes to cooking, where you can start out with something a little bit easier and work your way up in complexity. I'm still in the very, very basic. And also, how cool that you're moving toward that and developing this new skill. That's exactly it. Good. So just as we're thinking and talking today, one thing I want to encourage all of you to do is consider what activities do you do right now that bring you that sense of mastery? And if maybe nothing is coming up for you, not judging, just noticing and getting curious. What are things that you could engage with that would be meaningful and a little bit challenging and bring you that sense of mastery? That's my challenge for you. Okay, I'd like for you to think about what sort of things can you be doing to bring you that. Okay, let's shift into cope ahead. Cope ahead is one of Sam and I's favorite skills, another one of our favorite skills because we have a lot of them. And we really want to do this justice. So we'll dive in, know that first exercise that we did where we imagined what it would look like to be effective and live to our intention. And when we rehearse that in our mind, that is coping ahead. So we use cope ahead when we are anticipating some sort of difficult situation or interaction, right? For me, anticipating on Wednesday that my mind is going to be quite distracted and I am going to be sad and anxious when I think about my puppy Freckles, right? So this is a really good example. And so what we want to do when something like this comes up is we want to come into contact with it, right? We want to say, okay, what emotions am I probably going to feel? And I've just described those to you. And we can go further. We can say, how's my body going to feel? And for me, my anxiety is often tension right here, tightness, right? I might get a little bit of a headache that happens for me. I might notice some tearfulness. I might have urges to curl up in bed or call my mom 100 times, right? And check on my dog. And so I'm anticipating what it's going to feel like and look like for me to be in that situation. And then our goal is going to be to figure out what we need to do to be effective in that situation. And I've already come to my wise minded. I think that still engaging with clients, going about my day, is probably going to be most effective because, again, I am very, very far from home. They're in the Midwest. There's not a whole lot that I can physically do. And even if I was there, I can't change the outcome here. If my puppy is suffering, then I need to let her go. Um, so it's thinking, okay, what skills do I need to use? And I think, you know, distracting, right? Trying to throw myself in with clients, being very mindful, being as present as I can. Maybe being a little bit vulnerable, saying, hey, I just want you to know I'm noticing some distractibility because of this. But then coming back and being present, right? Letting myself maybe have some space, take 5 minutes to be sad, and then come back and fully engage. This could look a couple different ways, and Sam's going to help us walk us through another situation in a moment. But after we figure out what skills we're going to use, we're going to engage in some visualization practice. We're going to take a step back. We're going to close our eyes, assume our mindful positions, and we're going to imagine what it would look like for me on Wednesday, to use those coping skills effectively. If I want to be fully engaged with my clients, I want to be thinking about what sort of things should I be feeling, thinking, saying? What do I want my body posture to look like? And I want to rehearse that in my mind as much as I can, because repetition makes it more likely for me to be able to do this when we get there. Okay, so Sam, I'd love to walk through an example more specifically. So, any tough situations coming up for you in the near future?
Um, well, I have used Cope Ahead for kind of an ongoing thing that we face as therapists.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, when I first started seeing clients, I noticed that I was absolutely terrified to have to file CPS reports. And that I noticed a lot of really strong and difficult feelings around my duty as a mandated reporter.
Mm-hmm.
And I used Cope Ahead actually to plan out, okay, when that moment inevitably comes, what am I going to do?
Okay. So, can I have you, Sam, describe specifically the emotions, the thoughts, what comes up for you when you have to go into making a CPS report?
Yes. Fear and anger are the two primary emotions.
And tell me more. How do you experience those?
I experience fear very much as a tightness in my chest, tightness in my shoulders, sometimes a pit in my stomach.
Mm-hmm.
And then anger, I experience as getting very hot. Sometimes it feels like my cheeks are flushing, and again, lots of muscle tension.
And if you didn't use the Cope Ahead and you just kind of threw yourself in, what sort of action urges might you notice and what sort of things might you do or want to do in those situations?
There are definitely times where my action urge would be to not report something because I feel
Okay.
like my client would be better off.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Spot on. And what have you decided would be effective to do in these situations?
So, the number one thing that I do is actually use the stop skill, which is a distress tolerance skill that we are making a video on very soon.
Mhm.
And so I stop and I give myself a moment to notice my emotions. I take a mindful moment and remind myself to proceed effectively.
Mhm.
And what that looks like for me is being a little bit vulnerable with my client and explaining, hey, I don't want to have to report this. And I'm legally and ethically obligated to.
Nice dialectic there too. Another skill I'll just point out. It's right that she can say, I don't want to do this and I have to. Good, good. And I love, Sam, here that you've identified very specific skills. You've got stop. You know exactly what that has to look like for you. We've got some dialectical thinking and ways of interacting. Beautiful. And this is exactly it. We want to identify the specific skills that she is going to use. And Sam, if you were to practice this cope ahead, give me just a brief description of how you might do this ahead of time.
So something that I've done is the visualization exercise of visualizing having to get on the phone and call up CPS and report what I need to report. And one of the unfortunately common instances that we run up against is CPS then coming back and saying, okay, that doesn't really meet our criteria of investigation. We'll put it on file. And so I imagine that, and I imagine all of the anger that would come with that and what I'm going to do with that. And for me, that looks like reaching out to another therapist friend who has been in these situations and just having a moment to vent and having someone else to kind of sit with me in that for a moment is really helpful. And so I envision that. And I also envision the host of skills that I would use after to take care of myself and to be able to remain an effective therapist.
I love that. And notice too how thorough this plan is that Sam has made. Right? She's really thought through the specific skills and steps she needs to take to be okay. And this is cope ahead. Cope ahead tends to be pretty thorough. So our homework for you today, and I'm going to describe this below if you have trouble remembering, is cope ahead. But the way in which I'm going to have you do it is I'm going to have you start by describing the situation. I am then going to have you identify a couple core skills that you can use and rehearse in accordance to that situation. I am then going to have you're writing all of this out. I'm going to have you write all of this out, and I want you to read it to yourself and record it. And if you notice some anxiety coming up as I say record your own voice, it's okay. We're all there. Sam and I deal with this every week. We do a video. And so you're going to record yourself reading through your script. And from start to end, you are starting with difficult scenario and you are ending with you doing the skills that you talked about successfully and effectively. You are getting the outcome that you want through this cope ahead. And you are going to listen to it a couple times over the next week to get this good cope ahead practice before you go into whatever the situation is that's going to be difficult for you. Okay, so I'll describe this below so that you have it, and feel free to practice a few of the positives from accumulating positives or a couple of the distract or distress tolerance skills from your binders to take care of yourself after you've done this practice. Okay, thank you all, and we will see you next time.